Hi there. Thanks for joining, Allison. I am going to let you introduce yourself to everyone and give us a little bit of background. What career are you in? How did you get there? Talk about your education and experiences that led you to this point today.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I think this is a great series, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I am Allison Hibbard. I go by Allie, so feel free to call me Allie. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist in both California and Nevada because I live in South Lake Tahoe, so it just makes sense to be licensed in both states. Um, I have had quite a twisty turny career path, I would say. And really, I would sum it up as just an unfolding of my life, of one opportunity at a time. Originally, when I was young, I never saw myself as a counselor. I always wanted to be a lawyer until in high school, I had the opportunity to do mock trials where I was a defense attorney in a murder case, and I hated it. Every part of it, couldn't stand it. And that helped me realize, though, I really wanted to know why people do what they do. That was my fascination with law. And so that helped me realize it was really psychology I wanted to study and was after. So I took my first psychology class in the senior year of my high school just to try it out. And I loved it, fell in love with it, knew that was what I wanted to study, and ended up getting both a bachelor's and master's degree in psychology from California State University, Stanislaus. Um, from there, I started working at a locked psychiatric facility in the area after my bachelor's degree. So I worked the floor. I essentially walked around, made sure everyone was fed, clothed, showered, safe throughout the day, as well as, built the rapport with them, got to see up close personal people with severe psychiatric illnesses. We're talking schizophrenia, bipolar, borderline personality, a lot of psychosis, as well as developmental delays, autism spectrum disorders. So I got a really good grip on very severe mental illness, as well as the system of mental health within California, because we do have a unique system. We have a lot of different players, and I was able to get promoted into what they called a team lead, where I was essentially a case manager and worked with legal guardians, conservators, as well as family members, parents, regional centers, the entire system of mental health. From there, I had to finish my master's degree, and I was a broke college student, so I needed to get paid for my practicum in order to pay my bills. And so one of the only sites in the area I was able to do that was a methadone clinic, which is how I was able to get into the substance use field. And there, again, very severe. You're talking individuals who have severe opiate addictions and are using medication to help stop the cravings and withdrawal symptoms from that medication. So heroin addicts, methamphetamine, oxytocin, Percocets, you name it, they did it. It showed up in their, test results, and they denied that they did it. So I got to learn a lot about addiction, how we make choices, decision making, and how we make changes. And so from there, I finally graduated with my master's and started my associate work, where I needed 3,000 hours in the field of counseling before I could get licensed as a marriage and family therapist, which I was finally able to do in 2021. And in order to do that as well, I had I ended up moving to South Lake Tahoe to work for El Dorado County Substance Use Disorder Services, as well as rite of passage. So I worked with adolescents in group home settings for a couple of years to finish up my license and hours working with children and families. So I've done a lot. I tell my clients there's not much I haven't seen or done in the field of mental health at this point in my career. So that's, in a nutshell, how I got here today.
Nice. Thanks for sharing. I think it's really important for students to hear about your mock trial experience. I think it's good to have experiences that, if you're thinking about going into a field, try it out and be open to new things. And awesome. So we talked about the education required to become a therapist. What do you feel like are important traits or skills to be in your line of work?
Yeah, so counseling is unique because we do require a lot of people skills. We deal with people. So empathy, authenticity, curiosity, and I think a great sense of humor has helped me really be able to persist in the field for about 12 years, as well as just knowing that you can do it. There's a lot of obstacles, as you said, or I said, I've been through a lot of jobs, a lot of twists and turns to get to where I am today. And knowing what your options are early on, I think is also very important. Where I didn't really know, there was no one in my family as a therapist or in the mental health field. So I'm the oddball in that regard. And it's been a learning process for us all. As far as, and surprising to me as well, as the type of skills that can be taught along the way. So what in my bachelor's degree program, one of the earliest classes I took was Counseling 101, which was pretty much how to listen, how to listen and how to talk to people. And those skills can be taught and learned and developed and honed over time. They don't have to necessarily be natural. And I joke, I'm not a people person. Believe it or not, I tease, I'm a counselor that doesn't like people, in the sense of I'm pretty introverted.
Yeah.
I certainly don't like groups of people. I don't like it, going out partying. That's not me. It's some counselors can do it. They love it. That's just not who I am. And so to be able to do what I do, it's really about just, again, caring about the people that you are serving. I see myself as a servant to my clients in the sense of I am here to provide them what they need. And if I can't, because I'm not a good fit for everyone, getting them to those services, to the people that they can connect with and move forward in their lives.
If there is one, do you have a typical work day? What's it like for you day to day?
Yeah, so a work day is not very typical for me right now, and that's simply because I have the most freedom in my schedule as a private practice. I currently see clients via telehealth, so I get to set my schedule, and on an average day, I'll see anywhere between 6 to 8 clients. There is documentation that's required on top of that. So I have to write a note for every session I see. Every client has to have a treatment plan as well, of just an outline of what you are doing in treatment, what their goals are, and the things you're doing to help them reach those goals. So one thing that's understated a lot, or was understated in my early experiences in education, was the amount of paperwork required as a counselor. And we all hate it. And two, it's a necessary evil. It's what gets us the reimbursement from medical insurance, from Medi-Cal, as well as it also demonstrates and gives us a guideline of where we are and what we're doing in our work with each individual client. Because as you can imagine, 6 to 8 clients a day, a typical caseload is between 35, 40 clients at a time. So details can get fuzzy
Mhm.
with that many individual lives, individual stories, families, friends, people talk about anything, everything in therapy. And so trying to keep all of that straight, documentation is one way to help you do that over time. It is, I would say, it's very structured as opposed to a lot of positions in the sense of, because I'm meeting with 6 to 8 clients, that means 6 to 8 hours of my day are scheduled in 1 hour blocks. Like they're set, their appointments that I'm expected to maintain. And that is, I think, a little different from a lot of careers and a lot of jobs where you
Mhm.
may have several meetings throughout the week, or, 2 or 3 meetings a day would be a heavy meeting load for
Yeah.
people. And, for me, it's no, I have 8 hours
Oh
that
my, yeah.
that's scheduled, like nothing else is happening that day. And there's no time, a lot of times within the career, especially in a lot of industries, they expect you to take notes when you're actually with the client to help save time.
Mhm.
So at 8 hours, you're done. If you don't do that, then you potentially have another hour, hour and a half worth of note taking on top of those sessions to complete each day. So not to talk anyone out of it. It's a great career, but it does have its downside as
You should
far as
be,
day-to-day scheduling goes.
yeah, detail oriented, on top of
Yeah,
things. Okay, good to
yes, yes,
know.
yes. And as a profession or a group of people, we do tend to be highly detail oriented, a little anxious, um, very goal driven, because we've had to get a master's degree, we've had to navigate. And that's what my professors would tell me when I was going through the process of dealing with the certifying agency for California, is the Board of Behavioral Sciences.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, if you can get a master's degree and deal with the BBS, and get licensed, you're going to be fine. They're like, that's how they weed people out. So it's a lot.
So next question is two parts. Talk about what your favorite part of your job is, or something you're excited about. And then on the flip side, what are some challenges, or something that surprised you about your job?
Yeah, I I love not necessarily meeting new clients because they're very stressful. For me, those initial sessions cause a lot of stress because I'm that introvert. I don't really like people. Though getting to know people and getting to hear their stories is something that I do really genuinely love. And I feel like I get to know my clients in ways no one else in their life gets to know them, because they tell me things that they won't tell family members, friends, sometimes anyone else in their life. And so that's a very honorable position that I hold almost sacred, and that I love about it. I also love learning and seeing how different people's brains work,
Mhm.
and learning and seeing different diagnoses, and how those really impact people's lives. Um, right now, I have a client who has a dissociative identity disorder, which, if you're not familiar with, that was multiple personality disorders. So there's different, essentially, people, it's all one person, but
Mhm.
there's these different personalities and identities that come out. And so to get to work with someone who has experienced so much trauma and has become really fragmented in that way is interesting. It's the first client I've had with DID. And so again, like it's interesting and exciting to me to like still be learning at this point,
Yeah.
and to get to know someone and be like, oh wow, like that's how it works, and being able to see what we see as these extremes, these diagnoses, these issues as really parts of ourselves that are really amplified. And that's something I love about my job. As I mentioned, the thing I hate the most is my paperwork. Hands down, across the board, it's the most painful experiences. I see the point. It is valuable. It's not the part that I enjoy doing at the end of each day. I've chosen, I don't do my notes in session, so I do have to set aside those big chunks of time to do all of my notes and documentation. But that's a small trade-off, in my opinion, to really be able to sit and be with people and get to know them and learn about them and learn patterns of humanity over time as I've worked with different people.
Thanks. You're making it sound really, really interesting.
Oh, it is.
So if you could go back and do everything all over again, would you say take the same path to get to this career, or would you change things up?
Sort of. I think I would absolutely still be a counselor, and there's a lot of paths into the counseling world. So for substance use counselors in California currently, all that you need to specialize and work with substance use specifically is a certification that's actually offered at LTCC, as well as lots of other places. That's a great entry level point if you just want to try and see if this is something for you. It was something that, again, I tried early in my career. I did fall in love with substance use. It has been a passion of mine. So certainly, and I'm also licensed as an alcohol and drug counselor on top of a MFT. So I would definitely probably have pursued the substance use piece had I known a little earlier, as well as at the master's level, which is your licensed marriage family therapist or licensed clinical social workers. There are two different education requirements. So I chose to go into a program, again, not knowing anything, that made me write a thesis and focused on relationships and family dynamics, where an LCSW, many programs don't require a thesis, as well as they focus more on like broad systems instead of individual family systems. So knowing that difference, I probably would choose to take the LCSW route now instead of an MFT, in the sense of I could have gotten my education completed. I got hung up on the thesis for a couple of years. That slowed me down. So I could have gotten my education completed, as well as the requirements for becoming licensed for MFTs is different than for LCSWs. For MFTs, I had to complete 500 hours working specifically with couples, children, or families, which, being in the substance use world, was difficult because not a lot of programs deal with families or children. They deal with individual adults. And so that also slowed me down a couple of years probably to get those hours in order to become fully licensed. Where in LCSW, they do not require hours specifically working with children and family, as well as job and career wise, even though we do the same job at the end of the day. We MFTs are kind of the underdogs, where we haven't been around as long as LCSWs. And right now, MFTs are not we are not reimbursable under the Medicare system. So a lot of hospitals and other agencies that work with the elderly or the Medicare, Medi-Cal system will not hire MFTs, where they will hire LCSWs because they are reimbursable, even though we provide the same services. There's just that little caveat that, again, I had no idea personally,
Yeah.
going in. And so there are some systems that MFTs are not welcome. And so it does limit job opportunities. Though overall, like I said, at the end of the day, we do most of the jobs. And I also see within the next probably 10, 15 years, MFTs will be welcome into the Medi-Cal system, Medicare system, because there's such a shortage and we do the same stuff. So
Yeah. Okay, that's really good information and lots of different routes to kind of get into the counseling field. I do one follow-up question for our students
yes.
who aren't familiar with what a thesis looks like. Talk a little bit about what
Ah,
that entails.
yes, a lot of work.
Yeah.
No, it was actually a great learning opportunity for me. So a thesis is kind of a capstone project at the end of your degree. So mine, it's a research study that you kind of run, you develop and run yourself, and then you write a research paper based on it, that ends up actually being a book. Um, at the end, that then sits in the school's library that no one ever reads. Or in my case, it is on my bookshelf as well, and no one ever reads it. Um, for me, I focused on how cell phone use impacts our um, impulsivity as well as attachment styles. This was back in 2015. Well, I started it in 2013. There was not a lot of research done on cell phones.
Pioneer.
Um, and it was, yeah, it was pretty interesting. I fell into that, noticing myself, like we were starting to talk about phantom vibrations of like feeling your phone vibrate or hear it ring when it really hasn't.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, like I would stand at work and like constantly be checking my phone thinking I had received a text message, because
Uh-huh.
well, back in the day, that's all you got, text messages or phone calls on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I realized like this is crazy. And when it actually would vibrate or ring, like I would have this like almost nervous, excited reaction to
Yeah.
it physiologically. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, what is going on? and and so that's how I chose to focus on cell phone usage. And after lots of debate, it was we settled on attachment styles and impulsivity, and found that yeah, it possibly could be addicting. Um,
Yeah.
after I know in hindsight, it's like, oh wow, it seems obvious. But it's a great, it's a learning experience because through it I did learn how to read research papers, because you have to build an explanation of why this research is relevant, why it's important to you. You get to learn different tools. You also have to run all of the statistics, so there is a little bit of math involved. But if you pick the right people on your committee, the right professors to help you out, you can get through the math part and walk away with something that you've accomplished, that really not a lot of people have in their
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Uh, so it does feel good. It also helps teach you. I learned, one, I can't procrastinate on everything, and two, how to really break down big projects into much smaller, manageable bites. So as much work as it is, there are some benefits to it
Yeah.
as well.
Good. Perfect. Thank you. So,
Mhm.
what advice would you give somebody who is interested in following in your footsteps?
Yeah, I would say really do your research. you're not going to know everything that you're getting yourself into, though have a better idea. I chose my master's program because, well, that's where I went and did my bachelor's degree. I did not apply anywhere else. I did not look into any schools. I didn't really know what I was getting into, except I knew at the end of the day, I could be a counselor with this program. So do your research, try to find counselors, reach out to us in your community, talk to us. We're pretty open people. We like to think we're easy to talk to. If not, we're bad at our jobs. But most of us would really love to help someone going through that journey themselves, because we've been there and we know it's hard to know what questions to ask when you don't know anything. So definitely do your research, be diligent in just knowing your pursuit. There were many times through this where it was like, do I want to do this? Is this what I want to do? I remember very distinctly, I was probably 24, 25, at a job with El Dorado County, and I sat in my office one day and said, I can't do this the next 40 years of my life. Like something has to change, something, and at that point I really struggled with, do I stay pursuing, being a licensed counselor, or do I get out of the field completely? Is this burnout? Right, like a lot of big life questions that happen as you enter the workforce and after you've sunk so much time and energy pursuing something, and you're like, this isn't quite what I thought it would be. So for me, I knew at that point I wanted to affect change on a bigger level, which is how I got interested in nonprofit work and opening a substance use treatment program in South Lake Tahoe, which finally, after going back to school for a second master's degree, because I had to learn how to do business, that's finally in fruition. And I feel like now, within the next 5-10 years, I can affect change in not just working with 40 clients, but potentially overseeing and managing hundreds. And for me, that's more valuable than sitting and doing the one-on-one counseling work.
Yeah.
And I have coworkers who love and don't want to touch administration, anything. They just want to sit in front of the clients and do the one-on-one work, which is absolutely needed, as well as the admin. So there's always opportunities for room and growth, even within the counseling field. It's a career. You don't have to be in private practice. You can, be administrators. You can really do a lot of different things. I also am an adjunct faculty at LTCC. We wear a lot of hats in our communities, which is awesome. So don't sell yourself short. Be diligent in what you're doing, and know the hurdles will fall away, because now I'm glad that I pursued and I was able to get my license as a marriage family therapist, because again, that's just a lot more options career wise. I can go into any community, I can walk into pretty much any mental health facility and know that I would have a spot. I would have a position there, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Yeah. And also, I would have to say, as a mental health advocate, it's important to know yourself and to take care of your own mental health needs. Because a career in mental health, you're kind of in the muck. You're dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, dealing with really big traumas for people. And if you haven't done that work yourself, going into grad school, going into the career, it's going to come up, and it will get ugly before it gets better. So like, take care of it, take care of yourself now, and all the way through, because burnout is real. We get tired, we get exhausted, and we have to, the grind doesn't stop after school. So learn to deal with the grind now and find time for yourself in it.
Really good advice. So final question, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self some advice, or tell yourself one thing about the path ahead, what would you tell yourself?
I always say one of the biggest regrets I have is not slowing down enough when I did my bachelor's degree. Because I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be once I hit my undergraduate, my bachelor's degree. I plowed through it and graduated in 3 years and did not take any classes that weren't required outside of my bare minimum and psychology.
Mhm.
And that's one thing I really wish. I do have a passion. I love music, and I didn't give myself the room to really explore that as well. There is such a thing as music therapist that it's like, oh, that would be fun, but I don't know enough about music because I never incorporated that or made it a priority at that point in my life. So slow down and just enjoy where I am today, not always chasing after that
Yeah.
next big thing, and being willing to explore because there's nothing wasted in our lives. I could and have in ways incorporated a little bit of music in my therapy. I'm not a music therapist.
Yeah.
But that's a direction that it's like that would have been cool to explore and to possibly go into. Philosophy is another area that I'm interested in. I didn't really take the time to explore it, haven't really, and now I get in philosophical debates with clients frequently. And there's an entire branch of therapy called existential therapy that really looks at grappling with and answering those big questions of like, why am I here? What's my purpose? And that's where like philosophy can get injected and interfused with that. But again, that's a skill set I currently don't have because I didn't give myself the time and opportunities. So it's okay to explore. It's okay to not know exactly where you want to be or what the path is, and if you think you do know, it's still okay to explore
Yeah.
and to be open to other opportunities and changes. And one lesson I've recently learned in life is I always made every decision with what was going to give me more options in the future,
Mhm.
which I think is a good way overall as far as casting a broad net and having lots of options. And now I'm at a point in my life where I have all these options and I have to start making decisions, which can be which can be overwhelming as well. Because I can't continue to make decisions again with where I am in my life. I can't make every decision on, well, what's going to give me more options in the future. I have enough options.
Right.
I have plenty of options of what I want to do. Now I have to make the decisions of what is it I really, really want to do. And I really want to focus down on, and I really want to put time and energy and invest in that because now I'm 13 years into my career and I've hopefully may have 20, 30 more, but that time is still limited. And knowing that the past 13 years have been a blur and gone by so quick, the next, how am I going to use that time? And
Right.
so it's nice to have options. It also just know you can only kick the can so far. And at some point you have to start making decisions.
Yes, yes. More good advice. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. If students want to take classes with you, you're in the counseling department, right?
I actually, yes, all of our classes are under the counseling head. It is the substance use certification program.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
You as well. Thanks for having me.